Broadcasting or streaming on Facebook and YouTube once we get going here. So people have the opportunity. And we have this wonderful moderator named Josh who manages all of this. And so if there are any questions or comments appropriate to the subject that come in at the time, we feel that some of those people may have a question specifically to the presentation. So 6:31. Yeah. Are we on streaming services? We're on? Great. Welcome everybody to the July 5th, 2022 full commission meeting of the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Our secretary, Ms. Winning, has just arrived, so as soon as she gets her computer up, she'll go ahead and take roll call. Meeting started.
Mr. Barnacle.
Here.
Ms. Bates Brown.
Here.
Ms. Bruno. Here. Mr. Dallas.
Here.
Mr. Fagan.
Here.
Ms. Kepler.
Here.
Ms. Kepler. Here. Klein. Here. Josh Maddox.
Here.
Sean Maddox.
Here.
And Moore.
He is traveling. He's out of state for his job.
Mr. Paxton.
Here.
Present and Mr. White.
You can see the agenda is there on the screen. Just asking if there's any additions, deletions, questions.
I'm sorry. I didn't call Kayla.
It's
Kayla's
all
here. Here. I just added you.
Kayla Davis, she's our newest appointment to the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. So Kayla, put you right on the spot. Hello, everybody. So Kayla is here at the commission meeting tonight. She's the process of having her appointment made by the mayor, so that hasn't officially come back yet. So, but she is invited here to sit with the group tonight. She won't be able to cast any votes as a member yet, but that should be coming within the next week. So, I want to clarify for you, Rachel, for what we're doing in terms of any voting. I do, if you scroll up on the agenda, there was a or scroll down, I'm sorry. I had a presentation about Slow Street's Hilltop tonight. That presentation is not happening. I'll just take responsibility. I understood from Michael, the project manager for that project, that he was going to be here at this meeting. He's actually coming to the committee meeting on July 14th that we'll talk about later, planning and economic development. One of the things that our committee will most likely report on, the Planning and Economic Development Committee, last full commission meeting, we talked about getting out and actually collecting some more feedback from residents along the 3 pilot streets. And so we can definitely present a summary of what those comments were about. I think that'll be up when our committee reports happen. But that's the contact there. And in the agenda that was sent out, some of the back historical information, the project study, some of that, all that information is included as a link on the agenda. So. And then as an addition, we're going to have just a small presentation from City of Columbus Rexon Park, just about a demo permit that they're going to be bringing to us in the near future about this. Any other additions? Okay, so can I ask if have the minutes been prepared from our last meeting?
I have not sent them. They are ready, but I will send them. But we would have to vote on them next time.
Okay, so minutes are not available from our last meeting. We'll be sending those out here in short, and we'll be able to review those, and we'll have to table the approval till the next. All right, on the City of Columbus staff reports. I didn't see Sergeant Brophy here representing Division of Police. I did see Zach Wood here. How are you, Zach? Hey. We're doing the mic. I'd like you to, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Testing. Testing. There we go. Yeah, and this is probably something Sergeant Brophy would have talked about, but there was recently a federal investigation that was completed up here in the Hilltop for trafficking in fentanyl for a conspiracy. And so it involved wiretap. It was a long-term investigation. Actually, two individuals who, even before I had started in this role, were just known throughout the West Side as the two guys. And so they were arrested. Warrants at multiple locations were executed for different houses, and then one in the bottoms. $1.5 million in cash recovered. 44 firearms, bulk amounts of narcotics that had not yet been weighed, and then a number of vehicles seized. So hopefully that ends up resulting in some convictions, but that was a big development for CPD and federal officials. So August 23rd, so if any of you ever participated in one of our Moseys before, what we tried to do is we'll go out to a neighborhood and we'll bring everybody from code enforcement, Columbus Police, Division of Refuse, all the city agencies and departments, and then we'll get a group of neighbors to come out and we'll just walk around the neighborhood, check things out, get an idea of what kind of needs are, things that aren't being met, and kind of troubleshoot some issues. So this year we are going to do Highland West. So we're still working on a location to have the meetup before we take the walk, but that's going to be August 23rd from 3 to 5. Would love to have folks come out so you can ask questions that you might have, and hopefully we can point officials in the right direction to kind of address some issues. And then finally, Hilltop versus Franklinton softball game. We had our first planning meeting. Our next meeting is going to be July 13th. And hopefully we can lock down location, get an idea in terms of what the charity is going to be. I know last time we kind of came down to the last minute in terms of which charity each team was going to play for. I think when we talked, it'd be good to kind of get something up front so we can advertise who we're playing for. So that next meeting, July 13th, I can send out invites to anybody else who wasn't on the first one that wants to be included. And then the game itself is going to be September 10th. And that is ideally, I believe, going to be where we played last year at St. Mary Magdalene, just to the west of here. And then our backup date is going to be September 17th. So we're all real excited for that. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Zach. Is Avery Townsend next up? Hey, Avery, how are you? Avery Townsend, legislative analyst and linked to the city council.
That's what they call me.
Yeah.
So I know I kind of botched this last time. I'm gonna like hold it or flip it.
Either
Is
way.
it still on?
No, I think Zach turned it off. There's a button at the top.
All right, how about now? How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, hi everyone, it's nice to see you. So kind of the big thing is the capital improvement budget. I know I'm not going to go into too much because I know that it's on your agenda to discuss kind of updating your list of capital improvement budget requests from the commission. So just a few hours ago, we had the West Side capital improvement budget hearing. And then we will have the next three over. I think the next one's on the 7th, there's one on the 12th, and there's one on the 14th. So you should have all of that information in your email. So they're for different sides of town. So I understand that the West Side hearing was before your area commission meeting. Highly encourage watching. The presentations are tailored to each side of town. But you can attend any of the hearings if you still would like to give, verbal testimony, but you can also fill out the 2022 capital improvement budget input form that I sent out as a resident, and then you'll have your list and you can email me or Tigasamene in Councilmember Brown's office if you have additional comments or questions from the content of that hearing. So I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. I also wanted to flag that Councilmember Brown's Meet Me at the Playground series will be at the Highland Youth Garden on July 20th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. So that's kind of like her version of community hours. It's like a little bit, it's quite informal. So she is the chair of Finance, Education, and Recreation and Parks. So if you have any questions regarding any of that or anything at all, I think it's a good opportunity. Does anyone have any questions for me? Right.
You said Highland Youth Garden, July 20th at what time?
4 to 5:30 p.m. Let me double check on that.
Is there any possibility to recommend to council that maybe every other meeting is not during business hours or something to that nature?
Yes, I completely understand. And I will definitely let them know that was brought up here.
What are the Highland Youth Garden hours again?
Yeah, it's 4 to 5:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Wednesday, July 20th. All right.
And so because I have the email with the capital improvement
Yes.
form link, where else can that be found?
That can be found, I think, on her webpage. It's on our Facebook, and it can be shared with anyone. Like it, please, if you can put it like on your Facebooks. It's a really simple form. I think it's like 3 questions. It's kind of open-ended, but that's something new that we're doing this year that I think was long awaited. So yeah, I think that's on her webpage, but I know it's on our Instagram and our Facebook and our social media platforms as well.
That's a great form, easy to use. Questions are great. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. It wasn't my idea, but it was a good one. I won't take credit for it. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. Order, Melissa Green, Department of Neighborhood, City of Columbus. See you're here tonight. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, unless you have any questions.
Do you have any questions for Melissa? None. Okay. Hearing none. Is Nick or Dana here? Hey, Nick, how are you? For people that are logging in that maybe can't hear, this is Nick Plauk. He's from the City of Columbus Department of Neighborhoods and is here to talk about the Envision Hilltop plan.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be really brief. The only upcoming meeting that we have is July 29th. It'll be a full advisory committee meeting, and it will take place from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. But I did want to, I know I conveyed this at the last meeting, but we did, as a part of a survey that went out to quite a few folks, that similar to the feedback that was provided to Avery, maybe flexing some of the meeting times so that it takes place in kind of off business hours, whether it's weekend or in the evening. And so I'm going to look to do the next advisory committee meeting that would take place in September during one of those times. So that'll be forthcoming. I'll be sure to share that with you all well in advance of the meeting and with the advisory committee as well. So that'll be forthcoming. And happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
That's it for the City of Columbus staff reports. Did I miss anything or anybody? So reports from officers. I just had a couple of quick things as our chair. Thank you for everybody that's been kind of attending the community outreach events. Hilltop Bean Dinner, the Summer Jam West is coming up this weekend. The open hours that you've done here at the library, just really appreciate coming out and just meeting more people and talking about what this commission's about and what our role is supposed to be. So just thanks for that. I did, I'll send everybody an email, but there is a request that I got. It's the New Americans Leadership Academy that they're actually currently in a cohort, and they are asking if there were area commissioners that might be willing or able to serve on a panel. Want somebody from our commission to represent the West Side. You know, the date is August 24th. It's from 5:15 to 7 p.m. I said that I would do it just as a placeholder, right? Because they just like need commitment from somebody. But I would really like to see if anybody else in the commission would like to participate. Just let me know if you're interested. The questions basically for the panel are, why is involvement in your community important? It's kind of what's been your experience? What's it like to be a part of the commission? Those kinds of questions. So there'll be probably 4 commissions represented overall. So I wanted to share that with everybody.
What hour is that?
Hours?
Yeah.
5:15 to 7. It's at 1111 East Broad is where the meeting will happen on August 24th. So we need to send one person. So if anybody's interested, let me know.
The link for the capital investment form is on our website now.
Excellent. Excellent. If you have a chance to pull it up at some point, I'd love to show everybody how simple this can be. So the city of Columbus is actually, as Avery talked about, holding hearings right now about the capital budget. So if there's any specific, let me show you how to get to it. We are going to talk about this later on in the agenda, but there may be ideas that about closer to where you live in the greater Hardtop. So there's an opportunity once we pull it up here to answer a couple of questions. So it's an input form here. It's available. It's a Google form. Gives you an idea of when all the hearings are happening. You give your first and your last name, where's your address, of course, what's your email, and are there any existing city assets in your area where conditions need to be addressed. So this could be everything from simple things like potholes to lighting problems, lighting outages, those kinds of things. They'd like this kind of input. And then what do you think we should prioritize in terms of capital investments in the greater Hilltop? We're asked as a commission to try to represent our neighbors and come up with about 5 ideas. We've been doing that for the last couple of years. I've been involved in the commission. I think that we're trying to do our best to be representative of all the projects that potentially be out there. I'm really excited that this got created. It's lots of additional voices that can come in about what's really important in terms of capital improvements and how to keep the assets we have. So then I thought there was a great question here at the bottom about our neighborhoods are made up of residents who find themselves at different stages of life. So I can't read it at the bottom, but I think it asks about, are there older adults? Are there families with young kids? Are there any kinds of populations of residents in your area that we should be thinking about as we do this planning around how capital budget dollars should be designed and spent? So just again, Avery, thank you for you and everybody kind of creating that form. I'm glad now that it's available. Hopefully we have a lot more voices into what goes in the form. Great. Let's see. I'd like to, in terms of report, I'd like to ask that our zoning committee try to start social media, Zoom streaming our zoning meetings if we can make that happen. I'd like to give you support to be able to do that. I don't know that we'll always be able to do it 100% of the time, but really think that with the ability with this owl, and we could learn how to set it up, that we could be streaming our zoning meetings that are coming up. That is, I'm going through my notes here for what I want to skip over some stuff. Just to be, for the record, the opportunity for us to meet virtually is over as of July 1st. So we have to do in-person meetings moving forward. Just a reminder for everybody about that. Sean, our treasurer, has done a wonderful job of putting in our year-end reports, and he'll be able to talk about an update about the funds that we receive. That is my report for this evening. And in closing, we're not going to meet next month. We're not going to have a full commission meeting in the month of August. So we'll meet again in that September date. At the end of the meeting, I'll tell you when the next date and time is going to be. We will have committee meetings based on what committee chairs want to do. You'll hear committee reports here in a few minutes. And then I'm working on kind of a proposal for us to think about ways to kind of bring some of the committees together, not redesign or form new committees, but have committees we're thinking about maybe collaborating at meeting times, and so that we can maybe share some of the work that we're doing committees together. Fewer meetings, more opportunities to collaborate. So I'll have that proposal ready by our September meeting. That's very important. Question. James texted me, our vice. Said he was, I trying not to get distracted here, but he said he's on his way, so I don't see James yet, so. Treasurer.
All right, so I did a treasury report, but we really basically, we started out with our year-end number, which was $471.85. And so that's what we ended with last month. We did do the monthly for the yearly report, and the request for the new agreement for this year has already been submitted. So we're really just waiting on that for them to come in and take all this out and replenish us for the new year. I know there's a little hold up with our tax ID number from a couple years ago. Somehow we had a bad number entered 3 years ago, I think it was.
18, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just now catching up with us. So until that's fixed, they won't close out, and open the new one up. So we may be a month or two out for that. I don't know. So if you're spending money on behalf, keep the receipts. But yeah, I can't reimburse you yet. So that's it. Any questions? Okay.
Operations, our secretary, do you have anything? Report from our officers. Let's go to the reports of our committees. We're going to start with zoning, which is Patrick, Barn, and Rachel Lynn. It's a summary of what their work, what we've been doing in that.
Rachel, do you want to go? I was pretty down with that.
So I have our minutes. Do you want me to just go over generally what occurred before we go into applications, or do you want to just?
Yeah, we just summarize the project,
Yeah.
just a summary, and then just talk about how what happened at the committee meeting.
Yeah, so we had the presentation from 478 Bryan Avenue, which I think we're going to discuss briefly here in a moment. But the applicant is CRN Housing. They are looking for a council variance to allow that building to be used as shared living facility, essentially for a treatment kind of program where people live on site. So we had, I think, a good discussion, quite a number of questions for them. And then our vote was 4 yes and 1 no. I think, I could kind of get into some of the details there, but we had some questions about who would be living there, what kind of family situations they allow for the people who live there. And I'm sorry, remind me. Keith, I think Keith did a really good job of answering our questions, and I guess my unsolicited opinion is that he definitely explained everything really well for what I wanted to know, and so I think generally we thought that it probably was something that we would approve, but I'll let them speak about that when they give their presentation. We also had a discussion with the owner of 363 North Eureka, which is Mr. Orr, and he had been to a previous meeting, kind of discussed what he plans to do with that property, the 2 different parcels that he wants to seek the rezoning of. We did agree essentially that we weren't going to vote on that application at the time. So he is going to come back and present again. There were neighbors present who had a number of concerns, and so there was a lot of discussion with the neighbors as well. And I think that kind of summarizes what happened at the meeting. Yeah. So we could go into the application.
Yeah, perfect.
So as I said, the application is for this address on Bryan Avenue, 478 Bryan Avenue. Currently is being used as a shared living facility in an ARLD zoning district, and they essentially are asking for a council variance for it to continue to be used that way. And I will let the applicant speak. Want to you want to use the microphone? Yeah.
So my name is Patricia Riley. I am an attorney representing Sierra Housing LLC. This is my client, Keith Lukasinovich. We are here today to present to you regarding the variance request that we have for 478 Ryan Avenue. We would like for it to be determined that it can be a shared living facility. It has been operating as one for the past 2 years, and if anyone can tell me why I have that twing,
It's-
tinge in the
Your
background.
volume's a little too high.
I don't know if it can be controlled back.
Okay, maybe if I pull it a little further away.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it has been operating as a shared living facility for approximately 2 years now. CRN Housing has invested approximately $55,000 into the repair and improvements of the building that was previously owned by the city of Columbus. The residents that CRN Housing places in this building are all involved in CRN Healthcare's substance abuse treatment program. The housing is provided as a benefit of being engaged in the program. All of the individuals who live in this building need to be sober from any known substances unless they're in fact prescribed a medication to help them with their mental health or what have you. In speaking with my client, some of the concerns that were brought up to us were the parking spaces. There are in fact 17 parking spaces available. If you look, there is an old diagram of the property. It indicates that it is a 7-family building. There are in fact 9 units in this building. CRN Housing is willing to reduce the number of units used for housing down to 7 and to use one of the other units as an office to essentially appease the commission. We are here to work with the city and work with the commission and work with the community to bring about a benefit to the community. The goal is to help the individuals that will be residing in this building to become law-abiding, tax-paying, healthy family members. I will say that so far, CRN Housing and its tenants have only been a positive thing based on my understanding. Keith, would you like to add anything?
Program that we do, we are Joint Commission accredited, OMA certified program. So there's an actual curriculum for drug treatment. The vast majority of folks there are there because they are in recovery. So it is sober housing. Some do have co-occurring mental health disorders, typically mild anxieties or depressions. We're not talking about the profoundly mentally disabled being serviced there. Units have been set aside so that we can have space for individuals, and if we should have applicants who need families. The intent is to try and keep people stable after initial crisis event, typically an overdose or hospitalization. They've already gone through detox when they come into services with us, and then we just help them eventually get to a spot where they're transitioning to standard outpatient levels of care. If there are instances, and occasionally this population does happen, where they relapse, they are sent to detox at a higher level of care facility. And then once they're stabilized, they return back to the sober housing program and engage services.
A few additional details would be no actual treatment is provided in this building. It is for living purposes only. All treatment is provided at the CRN Healthcare office, which is not on site. The residents will be responsible for their own cooking, cleaning, daily lives. And the difference between traditional apartments and the sober living units would be that again, the tenancy is based on the requirement of sobriety. One of the questions that was brought up during our last meeting was how would we be able to ask a tenant to leave? The eviction process would not be a part of this. It would be simply asking the tenant to leave. If a family were to be in one of the units, the family would not be kicked out, if you will. They will be assisted in finding alternative housing. Because the goal for CRN housing and for CRN healthcare is not to cause barriers for people, it's to remove barriers.
The only time where anything approximating treatment would happen here is if we had COVID isolation requirements. One of the enhancements we did is we spent about $20,000 enhancing the internet and the infrastructure for cameras around the building to be able to watch comings and goings, but also if we had to have a client do telehealth when isolation, they would still be able to engage with their therapist, with their case manager, with their physician and nurses without actually leaving a warranty. So that is the closest approximation to clinical services going on at the location. Actually,
Are there any questions from the commission? Yes, ma'am.
So how many bedrooms does each unit have? If you have a family, like
2 bedrooms.
there's 2 bedrooms. So is there a limited number of family members allowed in each unit? So if they have 6,
we've never had a situation where we've put more than 4 folks in one. So I don't know if we've just been fortunate and we've not had a larger request, but in general, most of them house 2. We only start to change the dynamic of that if we get a request for a family that we're trying to preserve in one space, or if the volume of referrals hits the point where we had to basically have more than 2 folks. But 4 is the only thing we ever aimed for as a max.
you have other facilities where if there is a family of 6 or so that you could place them?
We actually have I have 10 locations around the entire state, and we have about 150 beds of sober housing combined outside of the area.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I have a question that I don't know that it was clear when we were committed. So you said, sir, that you're credited with CARF and OMOS. So
Joint Commission in
well,
OMOS,
the
yes.
Joint Commission. Okay, and so tell me about that accreditation. What's it for? Like, is it specifically for outpatient counseling? Is it like what are you saying?
CRN's approved for youth and adult services, everything essentially up to but short of actual hospitalization. We don't have any detox units anywhere. We do ambulatory detox at some of the offices, and we are starting partial hospitalization services at some of the offices. But that's based on the spread of available providers, nurses, and the need of particular communities. Our accreditation through Joint Commission is for mental health and for substance abuse, and many of the locations are also all approved as transitional housing sites. Through OMOS, we have the general services certification, meaning we do mental health, we do substance abuse, we're a Medicaid provider. We're on panel for all of the MCOs here in the state.
So there's a transitional housing component that you're accredited to provide.
Transitional housing is something the Joint Commission accredits. In the state, we'll have to be with the Ohio Rehabilitation Housing Committee, which is something that we're looking at doing for some of the locations. But since we are not actually seeking funding for any of the housing that we're providing, it's something that it's an optional. We're seeing how it might add as a service add or a value add to what we do, but it's not a requirement for providing sober housing.
And the state does not require licensure for sober living at this time.
That would be interesting to make, and it sounds like you're steeped in this, but just the standards that they provide around housing and permanency and leasing and all of that stuff.
Absolutely. It's a complicated issue. Sober housing as an initiative has been getting addressed and evaluated for probably the last decade. Interestingly, some of the same work that's going on here in Ohio was used to template some of the work being done for sober housing in California. So this is all I've done with my entire adult life career-wise. So steeped in it is an accurate way of putting it. Do we need something? And I think what Ohio Rehabilitation Housing is doing in terms of levels of care for sober housing to designate the different tiers from everything from unsupervised housing to housing live-in assistance, those are all valuable things. But we're in an interesting space where there's a dialogue happening that all of these things should be there, but no part of the state, not OMOS, Medicaid, or OJDFS, has said their willingness to pay for any of that beyond grants right now. So a few of the locations I work with, especially the faith-based ones, do have grants that are funding some of the housing that they're doing. And we try and find ways, like in Lima, Ohio, we're providing overflow housing for a grant-funded sober housing initiative there, where we also provide treatment for the folks who are in their additional sober housing. We're all kind of in a space where we're trying to figure out how to make the finite dollar stretch as far as possible. So we'll adapt to whatever the landscape reveals itself to be. But right now, this year, when we recertified with Joint Commission, it was the first time we added any of the locations to be approved as transitional housing. So,
Just to clarify, did you, in that application, include this location?
I would have to look at our quality report. I know Lima is listed. I know Steubenville is listed. I don't think that this one was listed, but it can easily be added if that was something that was stipulated by the commission as something it wanted to see happen.
I mean, I was the only no vote at the committee level. My no vote has something to do with the objection to the living facility. I have one objection alone is I prefer the normal eviction process for the rights of the tenants, and I believe you could in your leases basically provide essentially the same level of services with the only stipulation that you have to go through the eviction process to get rid of a troubled tenant. And I know that would be a pain for you guys, but I prefer to have that level of protection for the tenants themselves.
The issue is we don't lease to their provided housing as they participate in the clinical services. If we were to create a lease eviction situation, that could potentially have us in a situation where all 9 units could be filled with clients who were refusing services, refusing to participate in services, and there would be literally nothing we could do about it.
You could evict them, because that could be a condition of tenancy. That being said, I understand why you don't want to go through that, why you want to seek this route. I personally cannot think that's better for the residents.
And we absolutely respect that point of view. I believe you had a question as well.
How many current beds do you have? How many current beds does CRN housing have?
At this location or in total?
Across Ohio.
Including Columbus, about 180 total.
And then do you have other house, like do you have another house or facility in Ohio, in Columbus, that you're using right now for housing?
Right.
Yes, there's one on Brighton Avenue that will be going through the application for variance.
So you don't have any, sorry. How many current beds do you have filled in the state of Ohio?
Almost all of them.
You said the Brighton one is about to go through the application process.
It's going through the application process. It was previously zoned as a group home. Prior to us taking occupancy of the location, its group home status expired. So we're working with the property owner to get the variance in place so that we can continue to use it as sober housing.
I just asked because I got the email at like 5:30 or whatever, and I'm like, this is the first time I'm hearing this, and this LLC was formed in October of 2021. So I'm like, is this just another like quick for-profit sober living facility that we're all gonna have to fight to say no on because
There is no profit in this right
Okay.
now. It is purely a benefit to the people that are actually going through the treatment program. Keith, how long has CRN Healthcare been?
Since October 2017. We only did the housing because our general counsel recommended that we'd grown so much. It was beneficial to separate the housing services into a different program from CRN Healthcare itself.
And then, so I was on your website and you have yourself and another person listed as like a position.
Owner operators.
Owner operator. So do you have actual counselors at all of those locations other than yourself
Oh,
too?
yes, absolutely. We have a total of about 80 employees, several physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, independently licensed counselors like myself, social workers, chemical dependency counselors. Every location has more than It's not just me running around 10 different locations in the state. That would,
And that was just me looking at the
Yeah,
website.
no
I'm like,
red
there's only
tape.
2 people listed, but they have all these locations. And I'm like, question.
well, when we first did the web strike, honestly, Coffee and I, and starting off where we were at in Warren, Ohio at the time, we weren't much more than a 2-person show. Nothing about the opioid epidemic was helped by COVID. And it may come as a surprise, but many of my clients did not follow the governor's shelter in place, nor their drug dealing associates. So we're back to overdose rates that we had not seen since the height of the opioid epidemic. We grew a lot during the pandemic. So we're just right now trying to deepen the roots for the services that we're providing. Because one of the things about sober housing is it's a more effective use of community dollars than the short-term 28-day detoxes, which is kind of almost what I would call a catch and release. So we try and spend the time making sure the client has a coherent path into a stable life.
And I will say, based on my prior work experience as an assistant prosecuting attorney, dealing with children's services cases, the fact that CRN Housing is willing to house children and keep families together, it's rare and it's definitely necessary, because there were cases that I had where I couldn't place children back with their parents, even though their parents were sober, because of the housing issue. So I am very passionate personally about Keith and CRN, regardless of whether they're a client or not. Absolutely.
I think you may have mentioned this in the committee, but just to reiterate, what planned improvements do you have for the building itself?
When we first took the location, we had to do a significant rewiring of all the meters. So that was about 15,000 of what was discussed. We've done some improvement on the steps. We're doing some modifications inside to make sure the walls, the insulation are sufficient. Now we have some work going on with the gutters around the top of the property. It's a fair amount of work for a property that we don't own, but we've had a really good relationship with the property owner, and he knows what we're doing with the property. So he hasn't exactly charged us top dollar for the location, just asked that we maintain it and take care of everything and keep it up to code. So for us, I've always felt like so many of the treatment places you go look like they have signs above them that say abandon all hope, ye who enter here. So I've tried to make the environment for our clients a little bit better than that. The house, the duplex, one of the duplexes we use in Dayton, Ohio is actually the one me, my wife, and my kids lived in for 15 years. So we're just trying to make sure that we improve the aesthetics of things. I know this is a black and white picture, but if you could see what it looks like now compared to what it looked like when the property owner first got it, it really went from boards over everything and looking like bad things could be happening there behind those boards to pictures inside of what they look like with the brick face and everything. It's pretty nice. Of all the locations we have, this is one of the ones that are kind of laughed at. Anybody remembers the Coming to America scene? Don't clean this place up. And Eddie Murphy comes back and you walk in and you go, wow, they're nice spots. So we've tried to make an environment that's conducive to recovery.
Any other questions?
One question. So this is no cost to the individuals or families that are staying inside? Is this due to that you guys are doing Medicaid billing for the services that they're receiving?
We are a Medicaid approved provider, so I offset the cost of things like this
Right.
with the services that we provide.
So no like utilities that they have to pay, even if they get a job or anything like that, it's all through the Medicaid.
We do have at some locations where folks have said, hey, I want to step down to a lower level of care. Can I do like a rental agreement to have a room? And in some locations, we've done things like that, but that's a different thing. That's not the same as what we're talking about here. And those folks have month-to-month leases. They are paying for their space. And we would have to go through a normal eviction process. That's different from what we're using for these facilities.
So Rich stepped out. Would you just summarize again what the variance is regarding this project? And then I don't have the votes in front of me.
I can tell you it was only one vote against, and everybody else voted against.
folks that aren't part of the committee or hadn't heard something of that.
It's 4-4-1.
Or
And task force?
does everybody understand the variance that we're being asked to vote on?
Is there any community weigh-in?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that. Yeah. No, that's the only other thing. We're gonna formally, like, everybody here asks questions, and then we're gonna go to folks that came in here in the audience, do they have any questions? And I'm gonna ask if there's any questions that might have come in specifically to this application in Facebook or YouTube. Do we have any questions?
The person with the floral mask.
Thanks. What percentage of people living in your facilities are from the community?
Hilltop specifically, 60%, about 60%. It's an interesting dynamic that we try to manage there, because for some folks, it's difficult to get sober where they're at because they know where every connection's at. So at times we do make available to folks that, hey, you're here in Columbus, do you want to go to the Lima, Ohio, the Steubenville, the Liberty? We give that option with the eventual transition back. So most folks stay close to wherever it was because they may have opportunities for employment and family members that we're trying to rebuild bridges to. But there is also always a possibility that folks, there's a bit of a migratory experience to try and best suit the individual.
And the person with the floral shirt or dress?
One of the standards that we do have for housing is we don't accept folks who have sexual offenses into the programs, or if there are significant problems with physical violence, domestic violence. Outside of that, a lot of the people who are in recovery do have criminal convictions related to unfortunate life choices while they were active in their use. So it's not a exclusionary thing to have a criminal conviction to get into housing. But we do recognize that some dynamics are more easily managed in housing than others. And those two categories tend to be ones that we not only find more difficult to address in housing, but also a lot of our referral sources. Specifically, it would be on a case by case. We do have some clinical social workers who have backgrounds specific to domestic violence. Telehealth, it would not be there at the building. And it's something that happens also with those that you can't just say, hey, I want to be in sober housing. There has to be a American Society of Addiction Medicine level of care assessment to determine if this is an appropriate level of service they're going into. So on those sorts of things, we try and do a comprehensive evaluation of prior to the person getting to the location. No, we just finally, we didn't realize it was a necessary thing.
So it has been operating all that time.
The city just asked us to apply for the variance. So we complied. The individual with the black mask.
I have a couple of questions. First, you mentioned potentially turning one of the units into an office. Can you give us an idea of what that office might be used for?
Just sometimes therapists do drop off clients there, and if they needed a place to do paperwork, or when somebody is first getting into sober housing, a space to sit down and explain, hey, these are the house rules. If, as we've said, there have been situations where somebody has to have telehealth, and it's a space that's made available for them to go outside of their living space and see a doctor, a nurse, a counselor, those sorts of things.
Second, generally, how long do people stay in these sober living units? Are we talking they're there for 6 months, they're there for 6 years? I know you talk about wanting to transition them out, and I understand that this is very much a case by case decision, but you know, I'd love to know if this is something where people are really building a sense of community and putting down roots, or if it is really more of a transition.
I would honestly describe it as more transitional. Most folks do intensive outpatient for up to 16 weeks on average before they're looking for opportunities to step down. From the way we build the program, we start working on the plan for transition out of it from the time of admission. So they start off in group services 6 days a week for for the first 30 days, and then they start to taper down. As they're tapering down, they're also being encouraged to get employment, get involved in education programs, work on reunification plans if there are those sorts of things with children involved. And I'd say the average length of stay is probably 6 to 8 months from start to finish for most folks. For some, it's because they've successfully completed. For some, it's because they decide, screw you, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. We see them again down the road, hopefully. It's just very case by case, but those would be the kind of targeted averages, I'd say 6 to 8. I think there's a sense of community with the cohort that's there, but I would not necessarily see it as something that was transitioning into them throwing down long-term roots in the community outside.
And then the last question I have kind of builds off of that. Do you do any sort of like building specific programming? I know you mentioned not offering clinical services in the building, but whether that is community building or things that might encourage a sense of community amongst residents so that it isn't just people who are kind of flowing in every 6 months and then flowing back out every 6 months.
It's interesting you would ask me that, because at lunch today, my daughter asked me if we considered doing community service things outside of all of the locations for folks who've been in the house. Out of nowhere, she hit me with, maybe when folks are having problems and they've stumbled, just like if we get in trouble at school where she goes to school, they have to do community service. I said, yeah, that's a great idea. I might have to figure out how we nuance that in the programming, because there are sober housing programs where they have requirements of clinical a few days a week. And then on the other days, they have them doing community service initiatives. So this is actually the second time I've gotten asked this in the space of about 6 hours. So I'll be doing some brainstorming around it. But, you know, jokingly saying my daughter is the next generation CEO of the company. So she already has it in her her strategic plan for what she would like to see happen. So I heard a suggestion, but I think my daughter kind of took it as a, yeah, make this happen. So that's what we're going to be working with. But it is an interesting concept. I think it would help create some buy-in for the location. We've tried to do things like on the holidays, we do a sober cookout for folks, things like that. So I'm open to it. If there was some, especially if there were nonprofits in the surrounding area that said, hey, we have this need or that need, can we figure out some way, maybe this could be something folks could get involved in. Yeah. I did not get in, I never became a counselor with this dream of becoming a multi-state executive director. I just kind of was a counselor who got tired of the counselors not being listened to and their desire to see things actually happening good for the clients and for the clinicians. So that's kind of where my head's at with this, but I'd be more than happy to give my call and we'll figure some stuff.
The person with the same shirt.
Go for it.
I'm there, but he was asking about.
No, honestly, again, let's say we have that exact situation. Somebody's relapsed. Sure. Oh, no, a relapse would not necessarily mean that you got evicted. Let's say somebody is down and going to group 3 days a week. They're working on their transition plan. Boom, they've popped positive for marijuana. Okay, slow down. Let's back this up. Let's have a few more days where you're back in the group a little more intensively, because I know you want to focus on your job, but I actually need you to be able to pass drug screens at the job too. Those are things that are going to be relevant. That's an example of a relapse that would not result in any sort of movement. Let's say by that same different client, 4th of July, also a horrible weekend for relapses. Somebody's out with friends, and even though I give this speech, this is not a vacation from recovery. Okay, it is not an independence from your recovery. Somebody's tested positive for fentanyl, meth, everything except children's chewable Tylenol. Right? That can't be managed on site. So what we would say in that instance is you have to go to a higher level of care. We would coordinate the transition of them going to a detox program, and their space would still be there for them when they come out. But if their response is, screw you, I'm not doing any of that, we will help facilitate where you're going to next, but you can't stay here, because then it becomes an issue of, while we're trying to negotiate the when you leave and how you leave, that's now turned into a triggering event for the other folks there. And it becomes a cascade of dominoes. It becomes increasingly difficult and potentially life-threatening to try and manage. So for us, we've got to have the flexibility of being able to evaluate it and then immediately act with either referral for them to a hospital for a detox. And we have those referral relationships with several organizations here in Columbus and elsewhere. Or to be able to say, no, you can't just disappear for 4 days, come back, refuse a drug screen or reeking of alcohol and not stay.
That's, I guess, where the question does come. Is that something you have actually attacked the facts? I mean, the state of Ohio still has fiction law, so they.
For tenants. They're program participants. They're not residents.
Be asked, so. That doesn't apply, then that's what I'm
No.
asking.
We've not had that as an issue in any location.
Right, but I mean, if they did decide to turn it into a entire party house, leave.
Into what kind of house? I'm sorry.
If it were to turn this crazy into a party house, it just became a total party house, then if there's now like a eviction process, then, I mean, what would coach someone actually pack up and go?
First, we don't wait for it to get to that point. The purpose of the surveillance cameras and everything around the perimeter, so that if we start to see any sort of unusual activity going on, that we can then interact with. We've actually already reached out to and have a relationship with the Director of Public Safety here for Columbus. We've made him aware of what we're doing here. And I know that location has been flagged for Columbus Police, that if you get calls from this location, it may be related to mental health or substance abuse issues. So we try to be preventative about how we're addressing this. But if someone was to get bold enough to, hey, yeah, we've ordered sex workers in fentanyl and we're going to party until you kick us out, well, somebody's already on the phone to the police to make sure that that happens fairly immediately. Have there been times where we've had folks that have had to be removed? But again, it's not just with the consideration towards we don't like the behavior, it's that we have to manage and take into consideration what's going to be the impact. Because it would be a horrible spot to be in to say, well, this person, while we're waiting on them being evicted, is basically sitting there getting high, won't participate in treatment. And now 6 other units full of clients are struggling with the fact that they've got the specter of this right here in their face while we're trying to tell them to stay clean and motivated for treatment. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Most of our locations for the folks who are in housing, there's drug screening 2 to 3 times a week. And we use a 16-panel instant that is also sent out for confirmation. So never just take their word for it about whether or not they're using it. Some of the folks are being maintained on Vivitrol, which basically inhibits all the opioid use, but in alcohol, but nothing else. Some folks are on Suboxone or Sublocade. Some folks are absent. We're not a program that's tool specific where you have to be on one medication together. Always felt that was a little bit stupid. You would never want to go to a doctor who said, well, I only believe in the use of penicillin. If that doesn't get it, nothing else will. But in recovery, we seem to have these strange silos where folks are married to either Vivitrol, methadone, Suboxone, or abstinence only. That's just bizarre and not based in any research. So yeah, we do monitor for compliance with medications. Yes.
I have one. Can you just tell me what your mission and vision is for your organization? Like, what's your mission? You're the leader.
Yeah, I've been asked this. I'm the child of 2 dead addicts. I want to create the kind of programs that I wish they had, because they would be able to see their grandkids. So my mission is to make sure that nobody has a child like mine, and that people who are struggling with addiction get an opportunity to have that I want them to have. So that's the mission.
If you approve the application, I don't remember this number, Rhino, 478 Ryan Avenue.
Second.
No.
Ms. Biggs Fry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I have my mask on. I'll try to be louder.
That's okay.
Ms. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Dallas.
Yes.
Mr. Fagan.
Yes.
Ms. Kepler.
Yes.
Ms. Kipling. Yes. Ms. Klein.
Yes.
Josh Maddox.
Yes.
Sean Maddox.
Yes.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. White.
Yes.
And Caleb cannot vote yet, but if you want to vote for the record, you can. So that puts us at 11 yeses, 1 no, 1 not present.
There's one more thing I'd like to mention for the zoning committee. Got an email from the applicant for the North Wilson Road sheets. I'll just read the email in short. More not so great news regarding the Wilson Road Sheets case. We've been pushing hard at the city council level, but Dorrance still has been put on the agenda because planning staff is reiterating lack of support for the project. Our land use attorney, Dave Hodges, plans to speak with Mark Gravalis in the coming days. Mark is the assistant administrator for the city of Columbus Planning Division. Assuming you still support the project, it would definitely be in our collective interest to reach out to Mark and double down on the message we sent to the city council a few months ago. If you don't get on the city council agenda for the August city council recession, then it's likely our case never gets approved, AKA our case never makes it to the city council agenda. So I got this email last week when I was in Michigan. So I'm bringing it to you today. One, I'm just going to forward the email to the guy in the city. His name was Mark Gervalis. I'll forward him the letter that we sent to city council last time, since they've already approved that one. I would also just like to request permission. So I'm just thinking right now that the city council needs a little bit more pressure on them. I think that a letter to the editor might be appropriate on this because I just don't know what else we can do just to provide pressure between now and all this. So I am just going to request permission for the zoning committee to write and send out a letter to the editor on the Sheets project. And so just asking for that permission from the city, this full commission. And then we will actually write and present the letter to the zoning committee. And if you have any input on what the contents of there should be, then you can come to the zoning committee meeting on two Tuesdays from now, I believe it's 20.
What do you propose the general gist of the letter? That community members approved it and the council's ignoring that, or that they have no alternative suggested use for the area?
Along the gist of that, yes, and I would probably use a little bit sharper language about with the lack of development in the west side in general, that it is kind of tone deaf for the city to not hear a proposed new development on the west side.
Or offer incentives for someone else to fit their idea of what we should have for our community.
Right, why object to this one gas station when we have a few abandoned ones in the same row? I just don't understand that.
My point in common is the fact that they want to say no to somebody wanting to do something, but then not offer any incentives to what they want to be there.
Yes.
Because nobody's going to want to move in an office space there without some type of tax incentive, but the city of Columbus isn't going to offer any tax incentive because they don't value the west side as incentivable. So that's where I'm coming from. And if they don't want to actually help build our community, they need to stop getting in our way of us doing it ourselves.
So we review.
I don't think anyone's objecting. I think they just have pending zoning materials that have been asked to be presented to the, Department of Building and Zoning Services, and they have yet to answer those questions that we have related to some of the infrastructure impacts and traffic impacts and things of that nature. So it's not like anyone is objecting, it's just they have an incomplete application.
Well, I don't see how Sheets is able to get all of the other stores up and going as quick as they did, but ours is somewhat lagging behind the rest of them,
I think that
especially
would be a
compared to
question
the one.
for the developer as far as why have you not?
But they were able to do it
submitted
all for the
required
other ones.
materials? I'm sorry?
But they were able to do it for all the 15 other locations they're opening fairly
I know.
quickly. So it just doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't have their ducks in a row, knowing they've done this 15 times already.
I agree. Maybe they've decided because it's in such close proximity to another location to slow down the build on this. I mean, again, I cannot answer for Sheets, but what I can say is that as a city, we have to hold every developer to the same standard as far as what they're required. And you want us to have that, to have that level of oversight with everybody, because then, when a challenge arises as a result of a development that wasn't, the boxes weren't checked as far as making sure that everything is moving forward in a proper manner, then you'll come to us and say, well, why aren't you providing this level of oversight for this one entity with another? And so it's really just a matter of we need additional information, but they have not provided.
We know what that information is.
It's all on the city staff report. Everything's on the citizen access portal.
So what, we don't have a lot of time to discuss this. So why the comment that if it doesn't get to city council zoning committee before recess, it'll never be heard? I don't understand that comment. I know it's just an email. but-
Right, yeah, I know it's just an email from their attorney, so I could ask for that clarification as well, before the zoning committee meeting. But I just want, especially because we're not meeting in August, for the zoning committee to be able to make this assessment that, and we'll certainly look into whether or not the application is complete as well. So I think we should discuss all those things with the zoning committee, but I also want us to be able to give it the authority from the full commission to, to speak to the media through a letter to the editor, if that's basically our last straw.
So how will this work? So I'll come to the zoning committee meeting, that gives us a couple of weeks to get some additional information, and I can speak on behalf of the commission, without the full commission's approval. If I come to the commission meeting or come to the committee meeting, we talk about a plan based on the next 2 weeks of information and vote.
Correct, yes, and it could just be that we don't have enough information, the zoning committee, and we vote against doing it. And I think that's perfectly rational thing to do. I'm just asking for the zoning committee to be entrusted to make that decision. You as the chair to also make that decision. as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move. Sorry, Avery did something.
Coming to city council, I would be heavily inclined to think that that's not true. I've seen zonings sit in, or, pending for a lot longer than this. What I would say is, I don't want to speak on behalf of the council office, and I will ask them for more information. When a zoning has approvals across the board from the commission, from building and zoning services, naturally it ends up going a little bit faster when it comes across the board. So I would venture to guess that Councilor Dorn is probably waiting for it to kind of be sorted out so that we don't, we like to have a lot of those discussions, between the departments to kind of get on the same page about how to build on. That's what I will ask and get clarification on that. I do know his aide is back from maternity leave as of today, so maybe that might be a good time to ask. But I'm fairly confident in sharing that I would imagine it's just because it inherently is more work. It takes longer, but
It was just, they were waiting, when you complete application, Don't get me wrong, I love a cheeseburger as much as the next person, and I don't like turning left off of West Broad Street into the other sheet. So I'm anxious as you are to get this other sheets up and running. But we just need to make sure that all of the correct zoning materials have been submitted, and that's not something that the city has any control over when those get submitted to us or not.
So I understand your request, so I don't know if there's anything to vote on right now. I'll come to committee meeting. Give updates.
I mean, I am asking for just a yay or nay vote on whether or not the zoning committee could write on behalf of the full commission on the sheets.
Second motion, okay, so. Guessing for a roll call.
Voice vote, and if it's close, we'll do roll call.
All those in favor of Patrick's request at the zoning committee, draft a letter, write a letter.
Authorize to write a letter.
Authorize to write a letter. Who's in favor of that, say yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Whoever's opposed, nay.
I'm only saying nay because you can do it on your own. We don't
Yeah,
have
I don't
to
think
do
it's
it.
necessary.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more information too, because I don't want to send them a letter and then find out that it's Sheets' problem. And Sheets could have fixed this the whole time.
That's why I'm saying, the zoning committee is gonna actually assess it as a committee, which Dan is a member of it.
Is this a letter to the editor or?
It authorizes him to write a letter to the editor. We've already written a letter to the city and provided it, so.
I'm sorry, I did not receive a letter to the city.
You did, so I can forward it to you again.
Thank you.
So Rachel, do you feel like you have a record for the recording of the votes, so that it just went down?
I mean, it sounded like there were three of us. who said no.
So it's growing, so.
Going on with
Okay,
the-
so roll call.
Take a motion.
Problem. He's
All right, so
We're gonna state a motion again, okay?
Okay, restating the motion.
To the newspaper to tell them that the city.
The motion is to authorize the zoning committee to assess the state of the Sheets application and to write a letter to the editor if necessary. To put pressure on the city to act on the application. We're going to hear about it. We're going to review what Melissa said. We're going to take a look at the current state. We're going to send some emails to ask people for more information. And then in 2 weeks, when we have that answer, we're either going to write a letter to the editor or we're going to table the application and table that motion because we just don't have to. I'm hoping that we will have enough information to make to do that. But yeah, that's the basis of it. And we'd only do it also with the consent of the
You wanna take a roll?
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
yes.
Ms. Bates Brown.
No.
Ms. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Dallas.
Yes.
Mr. Fink.
No.
Ms. Kepler.
No.
Ms. Kipling.
Yes.
Ms. Klein.
Yes.
Josh Matter.
Down for bashing the city, but I'm just not sure on this one yet, so no.
Sean Matter.
Yeah.
Mr. Paxton.
No.
9 minutes. Mr. White.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-6.
So when's the next zoning committee meeting?
19th, I think.
Yes. 19th, 5:30 p.m. here.
Okay, so that concludes our zoning committee report and all the extras here. So on to community relations committee. So we have Jenny Kepler and Josh Maddox.
So we didn't meet this month. However, we did do outreach this past couple weekends ago at the Hilltop Bean Dinner, which was a lot of fun and a smashing success. And I want to thank everybody that volunteered and sat at the table and interacted with our community members. I know they all enjoyed that. we also have another opportunity for everybody to meet and greet, talk to community members, help them get to know what we do. Coming up this Saturday at Summer Jam West. And I still have a seat open for a buddy to sit with me at the table at Summer Jam West, just from 5 to 7, just 2 little hours. If somebody would be so kind as to sit with yours truly, that would be delightful.
This is open to community members as well.
Yes, I'm
Anyone
fun.
interested in the
I'm
table?
fun to hang out with. So if somebody, hi Simon, I see you. If somebody would sign up for that, that would rock my world, because Aunt Jenny doesn't want to tear that down by herself. So that's it. We are not going to meet, did we just say? We don't really have anything for the agenda next month, since we're already out mingling and all that jazz. We don't have TBA on the September meeting date, August meeting
And
date,
then
sorry.
July will be the 26th, and we'll need to talk about like actual.
Oh, dirt, I lied. We're at August the 26th.
26th of July, and then August, we will skip the month.
Yes. That's it.
Any questions for government legislation? Co-chairs Larry Burton and Jen Kilmer.
Hello. Yes, so we met on June 13th. We had quite a bit to set overviews. We do have one small bylaws first reading that I will get to in just a moment. We did heavily discuss committee structure. Dan is putting together a formal proposal to submit to the commission. That'll happen at a later date. Essentially, how can we get down to a more streamlined committee structure so that people are not going to more than 2 committees per month, ideally, to make sure that we are consolidating, we're not wasting efforts doing many of the same things in multiple committees. More details on that coming soon. Our main topic of conversation besides that, though, was the 2022 area commission election. So selection petitions are available now. They're on the website. We shared them to the Facebook page. I've emailed them to all the commissioners as well. Please do share those widely. Those will be out and available for folks to get petition signatures. 25 signatures are required, and petitions are due on August the 30th by 6 p.m. to either me or Jenny. If folks are interested in running, just as a review, there are going to be 4 open seats. For the elected seats, you do have to be a resident of the Greater Hilltop, and all the other details can be found on our website and within the selection packet itself. We are looking at an October 1st election. More details will come out in September. Dan, can I go ahead with this bylaws first reading? Or do you want
Yes,
me to
please
wait?
do.
Okay, this is just a first reading. If there's any serious discussion, please come to the committee meeting that I will announce shortly. So we are looking, this is a very small change. Currently, our appointment process, so in addition to the 4 elected seats, we do 1 appointed seat every year. That appointment is currently in our bylaws set as happening in December. The language reads, these nominations shall be made at or before the regular commission meeting in December for the following year. Many commissioners voiced that it makes much more sense to wait until new commissioners take their seats to make that appointment, so that old outgoing commissioners are not appointing a seat that they will never work with. So we are, the committee is suggesting that we change that to these nominations shall be made at the first regular commission meeting of the year. That is the first reading on that piece. This second is not a change, but a deletion. And it is just a redundant piece that is also outdated, happens farther down in the bylaws. Reads currently, annual appointed seats for the following year may be filled by the current commission through the appointment process at the regular July meeting. This is an overlook from the last time we did edits, and is also just redundant and not necessary. And the committee recommends to delete that. If you have questions, please come to our next committee meeting, which is July 11th. So it's next Monday, 7 p.m. at the Design Refinery, just north of Westgate. We will also have a guest from the Franklin County League of Women Voters to join us to discuss a possible candidate night on the west side. They're interested in hosting and partnering with us. So if you'd like to get involved with that, please do come out. They will also be partnering with us this weekend at Summer Jam West to voter voter registration outreach from 1 to 3 p.m. If anyone's interested in volunteering, please do let me know or show up to the area commission booth shortly before 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Just a reminder for those who are filling out petitions to run for the commission next year, this is a great opportunity to get out and talk to people. If you've ever wanted an excuse to interact with your neighbors, this is a good one. Last year, there was kind of a discussion about some of the petitions, the petitioners, they mostly hit up their family members, which isn't wrong and it's not illegal or anything like that, but it's a good opportunity to get out and talk to other people in the Hilltop when you are getting your petition signed. If I can offer some advice, one good spot when they have food trucks over here at the Westgate Lodge. I set up there with my clipboard and talked to people as they came up to get food, for example. So part of being a commissioner means reaching out to people, and so getting your petition signed is good practice for that. So just wanted to add that to it.
Great, thank you. James Whiter, as chair of our Human Services and Education Committee, do you have a report?
Yes, we did meet last month, went over briefly segment 4 from the facility master plan for Columbus City Schools. We will be drafting a letter of recommendation from the Greater Hilltop Area Commission on what will be done with the vacant property over by like the Wedgewood area. They're planning on demolishing a school and replacing, or they're planning on demolishing 2 schools and replacing it with 1 school. 1 school is currently abandoned and the other one is acting as an elementary school. If you want to discuss that further, we will be meeting here at the library on the 20th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Liquor permit review committee, Chair Rachel.
We met on June 8th and we discussed a couple of applications, which I know I sent my notes to Zach Lynn afterwards, so he would have kind of our input on these pending applications. But there's a request from Spotlight Lounge that we discussed. There's a request from Third Way Cafe, and also a request from 2403 West Broad, which is, I can't remember what the cross street is called now. I want to say it's Wayne and Broad Market on Broad. So we didn't really have any problem with that application or the one for Third Way Cafe. We discussed the Spotlight Lounge application quite a bit because there have been incidents at that location. There was a person killed there about a year ago. I think a couple other people were shot as well. Their request, however, is only for sealed wine and liquor until 2:30, when they already have the range of other permits. So I guess we didn't really feel like we needed to lodge any kind of formal objection to it because it really is a minor extension of their permit rather than a new permit or any significant change. So we just kind of let that go, and we'll see what the Ohio Liquor Board has to say about it, because they have some pending investigations into the location anyway. So that's kind of the extent of what we discussed. We will have another meeting this month. That will be the 25th at 6 p.m. here at the library. See, I haven't looked to see anything new that's pending yet, but if there are new items of importance, then we will discuss them.
Great, thank you for your question. Planning and Economic Development, our co-chair Simon Dallas and Victoria Klein.
Yeah, so we met on June 9th last month. We had the Financial Empowerment Center with the City of Columbus come discuss with us kind of what they do, how they're getting involved. The FEC really focuses on offering one-on-one counseling to residents throughout Columbus, all free of charge, and actually expands it to the Franklin County area. we told, they have 90-minute first meetings, and then they also follow up with a lot of meetings, and they're really focused on consistent commitment to what they do and making sure that their clients that they see are receiving constant communication. We look forward to working with them to make sure that residents of the greater Hilltop neighborhood know about, future opportunities and how they can get in contact with them. Additionally, we also canvassed the streets impacted by the Slow Street Initiative this past month. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, Slow Streets is an effort by the city to slow down certain thoroughfares throughout the city of Columbus. The neighborhoods impacted tend to lead to like Linden and also Hilltop. In Hilltop, it's between Eakin and Sullivan Avenue, and it impacts South Harris Avenue, South Warren Avenue, and South Ogden Avenue. So we talked to 63 residents that lived on those streets. Of those residents, nearly 60% of them said that they did not support the two-way conversions. Only 21% said that they did support them. We also got a lot of notes regarding residents feel like more traffic is being pushed to those streets because they are now two-way. So you're seeing more people using them as connectors between Sullivan and Eakin. Additionally, several had reported that since the conversions occurred, their vehicles had been damaged, animals were killed, and several concerns about safety of children that live on the street. Also, only 7% of residents surveyed said that they were informed about the two-way conversion, and of those 7%, none of them were individually communicated with by the city of Columbus. They received a mailer of some kind, but the rest of them said that they did not receive any form of communication. We are going to have the city's planning department at our next meeting on the 14th. The 14th at 5:30 p.m. here. We look forward to talking to them more about this, and we will also make sure that the residents that are impacted by this change are notified about this upcoming meeting with the city. That's fantastic.
Just had one quick thing to add real fast. A couple months ago, we provided a letter of support to Hilltop Rise, and we wanted to share that there will be a press conference on July 14th at 11 a.m. To announce the launch of the organization. So that'll be at the Hilltop Bank Block at 2374 West Broad Street. And there's parking there's street parking, and there's also parking behind the building. Watchable. Sorry. The Hilltop Rise CDC.
Thank you for your leadership and everything you did to canvass those 3 streets. One of the things that was really great was they created a form. They actually could just, as you went door to door, actually have people just fill out the form right on their phone. So people were able to take a phone, fill it out, just capture the information that actually created the data that you're talking about. So thank you for everybody participating. That was fantastic. One of the things that came up between last meeting and this meeting, just for you, and I talked to Patrick about this, there's a developer here in Columbus that wants to put in an application for the Hilltop Senior Village, which is over on Wilson Road, 300 Overstreet Way. And they'd like to do a presentation to the commission about that. They're not asking for, it's not a zoning application for any kind of a variance or any kind of council variance, but they'd like to share the project idea about redeveloping that, right? So like I said, that they certainly could be in contact with you as chairs, and that we would do any kind of a presentation. Like, can you hear me?
No.
I'm sorry. I'm going to do a better job of projecting my voice. I can do it. A developer here in Columbus would like to put in an application for some rehabilitation funds that the city has available for the Hilltop Senior Village that's on Wilson Road. It's the senior community that's there, 300 Overstreet Way. And so they asked if they could do a presentation in front of the full commission. I said I'd like them to come to the Planning and Economic Development Committee to do that presentation, because they're not asking for any zoning variances or any council variances, but they really do want to share the project. I asked them if we could move the meeting to the Hilltop Senior Village and actually have it there so you could see the community and they could talk about what the project was like. So I'm just asking if you would consider that. I can get you in touch with the developer. It's National Church Residences, and it would be in the month of August that they would like to potentially do a presentation for the people. Absolutely. Great.
So I have a question on that survey.
Yes.
So a couple of my neighbors I was talking to left, but it could potentially come up to like our streets being impacted because we were along more as far as like right next to two-way street. So is it okay to invite like some of our residents have concerns about it, right? And I understand it's south of Sullivan, but it could potentially impact us that live on Broad and Sullivan, right?
Yeah, we obviously welcome everyone at the planning and economic development meetings, but yeah, I don't know that the city has indicated that they plan to move effectively on changing other streets in a timely fashion. But they have indicated that this is a test program. So if people have concerns about and are very opposed to their streets being changed, because there are very vocal people on both sides, I would encourage them to come and express those opinions at the planning and economic development.
There's an email address as well. I think it's whatslowstreets@columbus.gov.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I shared it, but I think my only issue is it's a pilot, but can they, I mean, are they 60% being unhappy with the two-way street? Are they going to revert to one-way street? Or it's not really a pilot then, right? I'm just asking, because if it's not, it just isn't.
My experience has been when they've said pilot, if not enough people have been vocal to say, no, we do not want this, period, they will continue to move forward with it. That's what they did with the trash, for example, in the front. But the entire time they wanted everybody to go to the front. That was what they wanted to do. But they did a pilot, and then they said, well, nobody complained about the pilot, so we went ahead and moved forward with everybody doing that. So I would say if you're potentially opposed to it, I would definitely say no, but I don't know 100% if this is a fake pilot or real pilot or what it is, but given what I've seen in the past.
So here's what's exciting about the work that this committee did was they went out, they got people's names, specific addresses, 781, whatever, and so I think that it was compelling. I don't know that it's going to change the face of the project, but, I think that this is very specific data that was summarized well, presented well, and I think it's going to get some attention. So I would encourage you to invite people to come. What do you think about the pilot? What you've heard from your neighbors, and then just what is the plan for moving it beyond those three streets, right? You are going to hear more about, we don't have time for this, but they're also going to talk about the two-way conversions that are going to happen on two other streets, Belvedere and, Belvedere and the bike pathway streets.
What is it?
I'll look it up and let everybody know here in a second because I'm on the spot. Belvedere and, so those are going to be happening, but beyond that,
They do plan making Wheatland two-way. I believe that's.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't think that's part of the contract.
No, I don't think it's part of those streets. Oh, sorry.
Just need to change the name to.
We'll get the streets though.
I will. I love the idea of you invite your neighbors and not anybody else, right? I mean,
All right.
they're all welcome.
I think we
Not more people.
I think if you guys look at the capital improvements budget map, you can see that pretty much all of the north-south streets on the hilltop are included in the, study area for the Slow Streets project, which almost all of them are lefty streets. So I really encourage you to be vigilant. I know in Linden, they did a pilot project, didn't get a lot of community feedback from it, and moved forward with a pretty significant expansion of it. And now we're kind of in a tough spot over there where there have been some concerns that we're trying to address now. So definitely would encourage you to.
The dispatch did call me today. They emailed me. They wanted to know specifically about the survey that we conducted on those three streets. I called the guy back. I left him a voicemail. He called me back. I was in a meeting about it. So we have not talked, but I didn't speak with anybody. We traded voicemails, but what'd you say, Josh?
City doesn't want to jump on that.
Mark Farrenchuk.
So do we think it would behoove us to, in all our areas, honestly, to do a survey like that?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think the more data that we have
Yeah.
is always better,
So,
right?
so can we come up with a plan on how we're gonna, because that was pretty significant. That was a lot of people. That was a great job, I just want to say, very good. I'd like to see it happen as well. But since it's all the streets on the west side at some point, on that,
Well, I'm
well,
not saying that that's what they're looking to do on every street. What I am saying is that the slow streets pilot area has been earmarked for some sort of like traffic calming evaluation and potential intervention all throughout the hilltop. And so if you go on the capital improvements GIS map that's available to anybody, you can see that there. Now, they're very early in planning, and I don't think that any of that stuff they're really looking at, you know, until 2024, especially now because with the bikeways project, we have some other streets that are getting converted in a new area where they can potentially collect some new data from, because, you know, between Broad and Sullivan, it's a much different vibe than south of Sullivan and north of Broad. And so I think that would be a good thing as well, if you're looking at like doing some more surveys too, to kind of look at those streets specifically between Broad and Sullivan that might be getting converted. But yeah, I mean, you know, the Slow Streets Initiative does cover this whole hilltop area. And so making sure to communicate with them over the next couple of years, we've got some time, which is good, but we want to make sure that this stays kind of front of mind, because it could potentially be a change that has long-term, you know, implications.
yeah, I understand. So I'm a strong believer in being proactive, because 2 years goes quickly sometimes. And so we can come up with a plan on how we want to survey our residents. I think that would be a good idea.
All right, so just again, thank you, Simon, Victoria, Leah. Your husband came out and did the canvassing. I mean, there was a lot of people that just spent their evening going door to door, so.
You were there too.
I was there too. So. Simon did 2 streets single-handedly, but we got the other one, so.
You have the longest one.
We had the longest one, so yeah. Okay, so thank you for your report. Public Safety Committee, Chair.
I think Melissa, I'm gonna be reaching out to you because I'm not getting a lot of response from city. So like Curtis Brown, did he ever get back to you? No. And I also tried with 311 and just trying to figure out what we can do to partner with the city of Columbus, like their gun violence intervention project. And then just trying to figure out how we can partner with them in the Hilltop area. But I haven't got any email response on my emails, no phone calls, so I don't know, Melissa, if you'd be able to help with that at all, but I'll reach out to you.
We'll get you linked. I mean, I know you've worked with Warren from Care Coalition, and I mean, that's probably who you'll want to link with directly.
Yeah.
So we'll get you connected.
Okay, and then I think with James, we talked about the schools that are closing as well. How do we find out more information from, I did send an email out to Judge Brown, Columbus City School Board. Yeah, Judge Brown. I sent an email out to him. He hasn't gotten back to me. He's pretty good at responding, but just to see like what are they doing with the schools and how do we use it for the Hilltop, and what organizations are, if we can link them up with nonprofit organizations in the area that could potentially manage those rec center, or maybe the schools that are closing. So I haven't heard back from them, but I did hear back from Adam Miller, legislative aid, and so he's willing to work with us and other members of the city in the Hilltop area. So hopefully next committee meeting, I'll have more information for you guys on that.
Ms. Brown, the school board.
Eric Brown, yes.
Okay. The council on that board, yeah, okay.
Have you set a date for your next meeting?
Yes, it's the last Saturday of the month, sorry, July 30th. And it's here, 10 to 11:30. And the other thing that we talked about was, remember the annual city council meeting? And then we may not be able to do the bus tour, but we talked about sharing stories and bring other members from the Hilltop and then try to set that up maybe a couple months from.
Yeah, Avery, let's try to connect about that idea. Dan. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I think I really think that would be. So, yeah, let's connect me and.
Okay, our last committee is our Recreation and Parks Committee. I'm sure John's passed.
Fortunately, I was sick for the meeting, so it was canceled.
Okay.
But the next meeting will be at Ponds Park on the 16th. That's 10 a.m.
Okay, so in closing up our committee reports, I just want to say to all the committee chairs that if any given month, this group works really hard. I mean, we are in meetings, some of us 2 and 3 nights a week sometimes, depending on how the schedules are going. So I don't want anybody to feel like you have to schedule a meeting, right? Like if you say, I just am not going to meet in July, or I'm not going to meet in August, I really want to do some planning, or I want to just, get something together for a fuller agenda the next month. There is no reason or responsibility that anybody has to put a committee meeting on the calendar every month. So I just wanted to say that to everybody. And when you go around, it's like, I don't have anything planned for this month. It is okay by me to say I don't have anything planned, and we will see at the next full commission meeting, right? Unless there's work delegated to the committee, by a chair of this group, then it has to be, or as soon as you could, but there's no reason we have to meet every single month. All right. So on to presentations. We're way past time, but I think we're going to get out of here by 8:30. So got James Miller. He's a division manager with design and construction with the city of Columbus. And so I'm going to tee us up if that's okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but at Glenwood, there's a pool. And there's going to be a permit that's going to come our way to demolish that pool, get rid of it, and do something new. And so typically, we have said if there's a demolition permit, that it comes to the zoning committee, and the committee reviews it and says, would we approve, recommend, does it give approval to support this demolition, or would we have questions or say we would like to see it denied, right? So that application is not ready. It's going to be coming soon. But again, city council is going to be adjourning in the month of August. So I thought instead of, and I got asked today, if we could hear this or more information about it. And I said, why don't we do that? Got a little bit of room on the agenda. So Mr. Miller's going to do a presentation of what they're going to be requesting. And that way, when they come to the zoning committee on the 14th, 16th, 19th, that we'll have a preliminary review of this. We'll make sure that we have any community input. This meeting is being broadcasted. We can make sure we announce it. So that's me teeing it up, Mr. Miller. Did you have a show? I can send you something, Josh, if there's something. Did they show about this?
Alrighty, mic coming through.
That one's connected to this. On top.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is James Miller. I'm the Design and Construction Administrator for Recreation at the Parks. And very soon, you're going to see a demolition permit come in from 2K Construction for the Glenwood swimming pool. They are also our contractor on the Windsor swimming pool replacement. Both of these projects are going to be taking place this summer, through the fall, through the winter. And we're going to be working very, very hard to be open by June 1st of 2023. We have a lot of work to do in a very short period of time. And the opportunity to get these permits moving through the building department faster has brought me here to you tonight to ask you that on your commission meeting on the 19th, that the permits do be approved so that we may begin construction as soon as possible. Many of you have seen the drawings that have come through as a result of the Aquatics Capital Improvement Plan that Recreation and Parks did this summer. This image should not look unfamiliar to any of you. If it does, there's 6 swimming lanes, 2 water slides, a dedicated diving pool, kiddie area, a splash pad area, and a new bathhouse that's being proposed. And that's shown here on this image. What you're looking there in that picture is the existing pool and the existing bathhouse, and those parking spaces that are there dedicated for the ADA spaces. Those are all going to be taken out, and the bathhouse is going to be rebuilt and moved south just a little bit. And all of those parking spaces are going to be restored when construction's complete. And again, it's just critical to this project's success to have as much time as possible to get it done. So we're going to be asking that on the 19th that application be approved. And I'm going to take a personal interest in making sure that it's filled out properly and that the contractor's name is actually on it.
Can you scroll down to the next picture? I think there's a picture of what that design is going to look like. So you're saying 108 parking spots will be there.
Yes. We need to, there's a sanitary sewer that Public Utilities has that runs through there that clogs up all the time. So we're going to be taking that out and replacing it and putting it in a new one, and it traverses those spots. But they're not going anywhere. They'll be put back.
Any other information to share?
I don't have anything unless there's any questions.
I'll keep pushing it. Art, I said it during the whole design of this, that there should be some type of art component, especially as the Hilltop's turning into more of a kind of destination for local artists to do giant like art installations that the city supports. This would be a perfect opportunity for City of Columbus and Park and Recreation to actually install something in their facility to kind of show to the other rec centers that implementing public art is definitely possible within our public spaces.
And it's something that could be done, you know, if it's decided to do so, yes.
Plenty of room.
There's room.
Can you reiterate the timeline for demolition and then when construction starts?
Demolition originally was supposed to start at the beginning of September. However, we were able to finish the design, open bids earlier than what we had anticipated. So what I would like to do is get the demolition permit approved in July and start demolition the beginning to the middle part of August.
When will the pool close to the public?
The pool is actually closed right now due to maintenance issues, and it may still yet open. But if it does not, I want to start as soon as possible. If it does open, it is planned to be closed normally on August 21st, I do believe. So either way, I would like to start that demolition as soon after August 21st as possible and not have to wait until the commission meeting in late September.
Any other questions? Any other questions for any meeting? Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll see you at the committee meeting.
Yes.
Right, I don't have anything in unfinished business from the last meeting, but I do have an order, an item of new business, is that Avery talked about the capital budget engagement hearings that are on the calendar right now. The one for the west side was this evening, earlier today, right before this meeting. I was not able to attend. Nobody from the commission was able to. Josh, I did send you, you may not have it, an email earlier from Avery about the 5 things that we submitted last year as being kind of priorities that be considered for the capital budget last year. If you're not able to pull those up, is it a Word document? It is a Word document. I had forwarded it to everybody earlier on, maybe a week or so ago, everybody on the commission to just review what we had submitted last year. These were the 5 capital budget priorities that we submitted. We went through generating a list, and then we kind of voted and kind of got it down to these 5. Some of these things were kind of already in process in 2020 as we moved into 2021. Starting with the park to clear out the overgrowth of the park. Number 2 is the alleys in the central hilltop region. Finish replacing the 300-gallon bins, pave and repair alleys, including potholes, remediate flooding issues, and more like. That's been totally resolved. Sidewalk and crosswalk updates on Sullivan Avenue, Holly Hill Drive to Georgesville Road. Along Sullivan there, past Holly Hill all the way up to Georgesville. Sidewalk and crosswalk upgrades on West Broad, Wilson Road, Philippi, and the continuation of Hilltop West Broad Streets. Those are 5 things that we said. I have not done my homework to say, where are we at with each one of those projects in terms of total spend. Yeah, I mean, I can give you kind of a general, but go ahead.
I mean, I have for sure Glenwood Park it's moving forward fairly quickly. We've had a lot. I mean, you can see it. They're clearing it out, and I think we were even allocated more funds for the park just within our own internal processing of it. I know for sure that the sidewalks are the ones that I would still support, and then the 300 bins to 90s for everybody conversion. I was able to speak with Lisa Boggs a couple of weeks ago and try to hear some of her concerns more about the whole conversion, the fact that they do not support front street pickups or designated pickups like half a block away from your house, just because of the actual topography of the area, the fact that you can't get a trash or recycling bin down a flight of stairs or up and down an actual sloped hill front yard. So they do not support the front pickups, and they prefer them to be in the back.
So it boils down to questions for number 1, like Greenlawn, Glenwood Park is well on its way to clearing out that overgrowth and all of that. So the money that was allocated to do that, you said there's even additional money. Is that going to be able to continue the project? Is it going to require 2022, allotment of money, or is it still money that's kind of there waiting to be spent and already allocated? We don't know those kinds of answers, Avery. When we talk about whether or not item number 1 we'd like to continue to advocate for, is it fully funded through the rest of the project, or is there? It's like, oh, as we're running into this, there's more issues, and we're going to have to ask for more money. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of each one of these items. I'm not sure if they're completely allocated.
Yeah. Glenwood for sure can come off because money has been allocated from the department for that park, and the additional money has also been approved for it as well. We will, once the project is done, we will see an actual park, and we will have a trail and benches. Moving forward, the commission will submit more paperwork as far as getting more amenities into the park. But at this time, in comparison to the other projects that haven't even been looked at, I would say that Glenwood can easily come off this list.
Chairman, because you asked for suggestions for additional projects or projects instead of any of these, do you have those compiled?
I do in my notes for this evening. So I sent out an email to everybody on the commission and asked it to review this list. And if anybody had any additional recommendations of items that should be prioritized, I did receive 1 response. So there wasn't really any other prioritization that I did. 1 second. I had it pulled up in my notes.
I know I submitted a couple of things. I don't know if there was a whole list of others. If everyone submitted their top 5 priorities and we were tasked with whittling them down.
No, I only got yours. I only got yours. Everybody's been busy, so I'm sure there's other ideas, but you responded to the email. So
okay, well then I don't need to hear mine.
I don't see your email. I'm sorry, I'm looking for it.
Consideration, some things that I heard from this commission as well. I was trying to would include has gotten a lot sort of, as well as the business collaborative, not just for some sort of recreation facility over the Wedgewood area, something like, she was like, you know, even just like an old warehouse space that like has, you know, recreation amenities, something that can like serve kids here as like a bridge to get them to learn. So that's one thing. Another thing I've heard pretty frequently, we have invested a lot of money in the capital improvements budget and sidewalk improvements on the hilltop. But one thing that I think is a big need that you might consider is connector sidewalks to the main shopping centers, like the Kroger down there. There's nothing. There are no sidewalks. There's a bus stop, but there's no way to get to bus stop. So.
So I know in the, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
but like in the ones that I submitted, I know I would like to see is in this in, and it is in the Envision Hilltop plan is the Wicklow Road sidewalks. They were completed west of Hague, but the Envision Hilltop plan is specifically for east of Hague, and it still is like checked off as an accomplishment of the Envision Hilltop project. I would like to see the Wicklow Road sidewalks extended east of Hague to whatever that last street is, I think is Wayne. I would like to see many of the north-south streets need, you know, complete rehabs on curbs and sidewalks. South Eureka is especially terrible. And then the two-way streets, specifically the new converted streets, there are a couple of blocks right before you get to Eakin that don't have sidewalks. And now that they are now that the streets are two-way, there's absolutely nowhere to walk on those blocks. And I'd like to see some priority on those streets, especially if they are going to keep converting to two ways. That the streets that are getting converted get, you know, bumped up priority in sidewalk installation. Those are my tops.
So just to add what Melissa started saying with the Wedgewood area, that is what Human Service and Education is proposing, that the vacant lot that the city of Columbus City Schools will still own. We are asking that on that vacant lot, they either implement a new police substation, a rec center, a library, a public pool, a lot of amenities and services that you cannot get to unless you travel way past east of Hague. So that's what we will be like submitting, we'll have an actual draft letter this month to say, hey, this lot's going to be vacant per the city of Columbus City Schools. We need it to be something other than a vacant lot or a football field, because that community has nothing other than Big Run Park, which also still has nothing in it other than a playground facility that Parks and Rec has identified as not sustainable for that actual park because it's not big enough.
So we're coming to the close of our meeting. You know, I said at the Planning and Economic Development Committee, this last meeting, I said, we're gonna have to start thinking about the capital budget request. I mean, we were mentioning that, thinking this was gonna be something we were gonna like do in September, right? So apologize again for we need to have this done relatively quickly, but I was trying to get the committee, and we were talking about, we really need to start thinking about this. So it's a good thing that the hearings are happening. So number one, use the form. If you're anybody that's watching right now, or anybody that has an individualized request, use that form that Josh showed you. It's on our website tonight, right? Number two, in terms of process, Avery would like, as a representative to City Council, for us as the Greater Hilltop Area Commission to think about the people that we represent and prioritize a list of 5 things or so, right? You presented about 4 things in an email, Leah. James, you've got
sidewalks.
They're all sidewalks. I see them right now. We won't listen. So there's those. You know, I think that there are items on here, 4 out of 5, that are still in a lot of our minds really a priority. So in terms of a process, when would you like to have this back from us, Avery?
So if we are planning to hear and attend the capital budget for recess, what I will say is that I think down in the footnotes of that document, I think they've addressed at least that it was going through. So when the council office received the list last year, they sent out all of these requests to all of the departments and asked for like a status update, like for example, public park. That this is what we're doing. I think that's the one that's in there. And so there really isn't a ton of harm something in there that you're not sure, you know, like what you were saying with the sidewalks with these homes. Like there's no harm in leaving them in there. What you can do, and we can ask them to say, like, you know, status update on this, you know, if it isn't funded, want to see this project prioritized. So we like to use the form for any commissioners as residents and residents individuals, but we like to compile this of all of our information priorities just because we know that you guys are, you know, really good at this. About these sort of things. So it's helpful. You're not limited to 5. I would say it's always good to like flag 1 or 2 really important considerations, but all I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that there's no in having more tonight, and what I is asked and have for updates on the ones that we're not sure about. But I mean, it sounds like maybe we can take this and some of these announcements and put it together tonight. So we'll say, you know, we have a few weeks. It doesn't happen. Yeah, it says put one like a list on it. I don't meet again until September. So, you know, we get the budget when you all get the budget. So that's, you know, the hearings for our teaching between, you know, now and recess. And for various reasons, bond sale purposes, construction season, it's fairly important that it passes in the summer. That's why it's typically done that way. So that's kind of the situation with it. But like I said earlier, there's no harm if there's something in there that you're not sure, you still want to see done, like a status update on. I can absolutely get that.
So last year we did a survey.
We did.
I was gonna say, can we ask the residents instead of us choosing?
Well, we did a survey with ourselves last year. I think it would be good to get resident feedback. I don't know. And maybe we could put up a survey on the Facebook page, but
I think our best use of time is to just really get the city survey out there. Us to submit our priorities and to really push the city survey hard. We have to still compile and submit something.
yeah, I would agree.
What do you mean about this? So is the commissioner sending 5? Is that what you're doing? You're gonna submit your 5 and then we're gonna ask the residents to submit their
So historically, we've always been asked to, as long as I've been in 3 years, you know, been involved with the commission, we're asked to, the commissions across the city are asked to put their 5 priorities forward, speaking for our neighbors, right?
Yeah.
So we have to vote on and approve that, whatever that's gonna look like. We're gonna have to come from a consensus about what those 5 things are. And they're asking us to do that tonight. So there's some of that, but then we need to continue to work on gathering more input that form allows us to do, right? Like I have other projects, other things that I would like to be brought forward. So whether you live on a specific street, you're talking about a street, or whether you're talking about a project that involves, you know, multiple streets and alleys. Our process.
I'm just thinking like, depending on who you're talking to, some of those are not gonna be my priorities. Like number 2 would be a priority.
Right.
You know what I mean? So some folks are not gonna care about sidewalk.
So I'm going to just give us a place to kind of jump off from, if that's okay. I think number 2, 3, 4, and 5 continue would be something the commission would. I don't have a motion to get there, but I'm going to say 2, 3, 4, and 5 are something that we would like to continue to see happen. I think, Leah, of the 4 things that you talked about, the first 3 are encapsulated somehow in 2, 3.
I don't need any of mine to end up on our official list. I'll submit them on my own. I thought we were compiling a giant list, so that's why I.
And that's what we did last year. We compiled a giant list and then we did a survey of ourselves saying rank the top 5. That is the 12 that we had or whatever. So that was what we did last year. But this year, if we want to continue to put an effort on those final 4 things, I could turn around and submit that. And then we could put extend Wicklow Road sidewalk installation east of Hayden to South Wayne and be very specific about the capital project to be able to do something with a rec center, something with some kind of youth program. And then the only other thing I don't see on here is curbs. I think curbs are a huge issue. I hear it more every time there's any kind of ask for input, somebody else in their hand says the curbs on the street are not there.
I would say that it would be behoove to remove number 5. Even though it's something that I want to happen, the West Broad Street street's been indefinitely suspended.
Parts of it have been rolled into Link Us as well.
That's why it's been permanently suspended. So they're playing, waiting for Linkus to happen, if it happens.
They're not gonna do anything.
I would say they continue to do that. And because of that, I would like it up.
That's why I would want that one not on the list, because I know that no matter what we say, it's not gonna happen.
Right, but I want it on the record that we have continually asked them multiple times to do that. I have asked the potholes up and down that street since 2013. When I got my car, I started asking for potholes to be fixed. Every year, it's, well, this is gonna happen next year, so we're not gonna do it yet, but, oh, sorry, next year, this is gonna, it continues to get
And
kicked
now
out.
it's pushed into link us,
And we lose
which
our,
is-
we lost our money for it.
It's not fun.
They don't have funds for link us.
Well, where did the
so
money
they're
go
holding
then?
off projects, hoping to get funded for another project.
And I completely agree. It's just, I think that if we ask, it's just not gonna happen. I'd rather ask for something that I think is more likely to happen. I understand where you're coming from, and I would tend to agree. I mean, Old Tangier Road is also gonna be part of the Linkus initiative, but there's still streetscaping right now. Drive up on it, Old Tangier Road. They're still doing playing improvements.
And they fixed the sidewalks and curbs along Franklin on Broad Street.
Yes.
Yep, that's part of link us. But, did that.
Yeah, so, no,
I'll have to find the traffic zoning maps that I found, because it'll actually say the grade of the roads and then it'll top it. It seems that they tend to wait till they're about like 50% degraded before they actually come in and replace them. And West Broad's like fairly close to, like, I think it's in like 60, 55. So we're more or less rolling into the whole, it's not drivable anymore. And I don't understand why it continues to be that way, because that's not really acceptable to anybody unless we all start turning in alignment receipts to the city for them to just at least
They don't pay those.
repay it.
Do not pay those.
I mean,
It's a state route. Like,
instead of asking for a streetscape, which I don't think we'll get, why don't we at least ask for street repair on West Broad? Because I think that it's at least deserving of, putting fresh blacktop on top of it, if nothing else.
not to rip it up and redo the pipes.
I mean, they need to do them, yes, it needs to be ripped out completely, and it's gonna happen at some point, but, I mean, we know that they're not gonna do this. We know they're not gonna do it next year, so I think you're right. So why don't we just ask for street repair on West Broad?
That's fine.
Something.
I just love just saying what you're saying.
Fix the road. Like, I don't know
No,
why we have
fix
to keep
damn right,
asking
you're right.
like that. Yeah.
I just don't know why I have to keep asking for sidewalks either. It's like half of our top 5 is sidewalks. And the sad part is just Coda's out here connecting people to dirt trails, and I don't get why they don't have the means to say, hey, like, all of our bus stops should have a linkable sidewalk to them, and they shouldn't be dangling off the cliff sides up off of Hilliard Run Road.
I love this job, Chair, and it's a thankless job, but I'm gonna try to make sure that I get a comment, because it's all Betty's hand was raised, but go ahead. Yeah.
Can we ask for an update on the police substation?
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened with the streets?
I
They're
mean, I
waiting.
announced it, as far as I know, it should have already happened by now.
And I keep saying I'm not gonna be in a position where I'm gonna be like, working here drafting a document for approval, but this is the position that we're in tonight. So I feel, let me kind of review where we're at. How about that? How does this?
Sounds good.
Alleys and Hilltop, the central region. So east of Hague, west of 70, south of Broad, north of Sullivan. Finish replacing the 300-gallon bins, pave and repair the alleys, including potholes, remediate flooding issues, more lighting, and fix the curbs. Add curbs.
I don't know that we
need to
want to.
actually have some oversight with their project management, because they redid my alley, but then they ran a street sweeper over it. And they told me last winter that they would come out and redo it, but it's been a year now, and it's worse than when they showed up the first time. Again, it's about quality control, and I'm getting real sick and tired of my tax dollars going to all these projects, and they turn around and looking and not operating like they should. Our streets still shouldn't flood when they come out and redo the whole entire street and put in an additional drain just for them not to drain into the drains.
Now listen,
So this is
Highland
about
West has
capital
been flooding a
requests.
lot longer than your
gotta-
street.
I would just.
I'm asking like to generate a conversation and then I say, let's shut it down. Let's
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
I'll shut it down. So this is about capital request, right? So I'm just asking, do we want it? And number two, is it, I'm gonna add, fixing, there's a lot of people that say my curbs have eroded on these same streets, right? So it's not only alleys, but it's the front of the property and the curbs and lighting and some different things also, right? I'm gonna add that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to remove the finish replacing 300 gallon?
Yeah, I don't think we want to hire
Some
ourselves on
folks
that.
don't want that.
I would
so-
rephrase the whole
Wait,
thing and
wait,
just say, like,
Some of us
alley
want that.
resurfacing
Some
and
don't.
curb replacement.
No,
I
they
think
don't
it's
like
an
Wait,
easier
wait,
way to
front.
just address the trash issue, which is. getting
Let
rid
the-
of
We don't want
Yeah.
to move to the
Dumpsters.
front, but we
Yeah.
want to convert.
Let somebody who lives in Highland West
Thank you.
speak up. on it.
So-
For our people.
The recommendation by Leah, I think it was why don't we just redraft it to say alley resurfacing and fixing curbs in that area and more lighting.
Yeah, we got some light up. We still want to finish converting the 300 gallons to 92, but we don't want it in the front. We want it still in the back.
Finish replacing 300-gallon bins to stay in the back. Yep. Stay in
Stay in the back.
Stay in the alley for pickup.
Yes.
Okay.
For rear.
For rear collection.
But I mean, the alleys need to be refurbished in order to keep them in the back.
Well, there's a tool now that they can add to the trash trucks so where they can still pick up the 90 gallons.
I have a job to do. Let's
Yeah,
finish,
yeah.
okay? So
They could have done that
Um,
before too.
sidewalk and crosswalk updates from Sullivan Avenue from Holly Hill to Georgesville. The same thing from Wilson Road to Philippi.
I would remove that one.
Okay.
No.
It's necessary, but again, I don't think they'll do it before Linkus, because that's part of the Linkus. Avenue.
I think it's gotta stay.
They were gonna do that.
That's our main
I'd
shopping.
rather put one of your sidewalk requests in.
Can we just do a blanket sidewalk request and we actually submit like a map? Because it sounds like there's a lot.
Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing. Every committee chair needs to put this on their working agenda to start working on this immediately for next year, right? Like, this should be an item for us to be thinking about over a 12-month span period of time, instead of about a 12-minute period of time.
Yeah.
So, you guys have been fantastic for this discussion. I really do appreciate this. I'm gonna leave sidewalk and crosswalk updates, Holly Hill Drive to Georgesville. There's dissension or disagreement between Wilson Road and Philippi. That wouldn't be prioritized. So let me finish. That would have been number 3. And then repairs on West Broad Street, just from
Mostly west of Hague.
West of Hague. Just the
Let's say from the
Hague.
270 downtown.
West of Hague to
Well, 270 Philippi is pretty nice. I don't know why. Pretty nice. But other than that, I would say from 270 downtown, it needs it. And that was the initial streetscape space.
the police substation on Sullivan Avenue. Yes. And that there needs to be a capital investment in a youth recreation. center.
Wedgewood Community Plan. I need a Wedgewood Community Plan. I need a blanketed kind of plan needs to be formed and dollars need allocated to it because like I said, they need.
I think you should sit in that area. It should not just be.
Oh, I mean, it's gonna be like one parcel over from it. I mean, they need something and that's the working title I have at the second.
I have a really choppy document here, so I'm going to put a motion forward with these items to be listed in a document. Yes, it's representative of the vote. If we do affirm this to move forward, that there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things on this. Six items. I'm going to do 6 items. So it's alleys in the central hilltop, alley resurfacing, fixing curbs. I don't want to repeat myself. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Alleys in the central hilltop region, number 1. I hope that didn't come across rude. I just want to make sure. Alleys in the central hilltop region, resurface the alleys, fix the curbs and more lighting. Finish replacing the 300-gallon bins for rear collection. Yeah, okay.
Second.
Okay, we can second that. We can motion this one at a time, I guess. Sidewalk and crosswalk updates from Holly Hill Drive to Georgesville. Sidewalk and crosswalk updates from Wilson Road to Philippi. With a vote so far to say no to included. Repairs on West Broad from Hague to 270. Continue to invest in the police substation and that we have the allocation of capital dollars to do a youth recreation center in the far west side of town, Holly Hills, this area.
Yeah.
My motion is to draft those things in a letter that I will send, I will sign if I get an approval to vote. So that's my motion to move those items forward as our capital budget request for Greater Alpharetta Commission.
Second.
Thank you. Let's take a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those who would be opposed.
And everyone else needs to
Anybody
fill out
abstaining?
form. I'm abstaining, city form.
You're not saying anything?
No, I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining.
I
Okay,
don't
so we
think
have
it
one
matters.
abstention. We have a lot of yeses, so I will get this document out to everybody. But what I want to encourage us to do as we get ready to close is that become a springboard for us to get more voices, for us to be clear, for us to be specific. Make sure that you're getting that from folks that live in your areas of the greater Hilltop, make sure you're a voice for that, make sure they understand how to get their input. It is 8:46. Are there any announcements that anybody has?
On August 2nd, there is a primary election throughout Ohio. I would encourage everybody to go vote instead of attending the meeting that we are not having.
Anybody else?
This Saturday is the Westgate Lodge's monthly community breakfast. It is $7 for adults and $3 for kids. And it goes from 9 a.m. till noon, and it's really good. So I encourage people to go try it out.
And then you can go to the summer jam.
And then you go to summer jam.
And we also need, as a member of the summer Hilltop Arts Collective, we still need volunteers for the afternoon. So if you want to volunteer, you can do so. So go to that, then you're good.
I got to see our Victoria March in the Doodah Parade yesterday in the heat, representing Summer Jam yesterday.
I have
So
blisters on my feet, yes.
she's dedicated and awesome.
Since we will not be meeting in August, if anyone has questions about the selection petition to run for a seat, since those are due at the end of August, please do reach out to either me or Jenny to get those clarified.
So it's James, Patrick, Rachel, myself. There's, how many of us are up for either re-election or those seats? So it's Rachel, Patrick, myself,
There will be
James, and
5
Sean.
people
There's 5 of us.
total.
Yeah, so just to kind of let you know how that's happening. So. And you have our final announcement.
A step in the right direction is hosting our 3rd annual back to school summer bash, August 21st, 12 to 4 p.m. All K through 12 are allowed to come get a free book bag full of school supplies. Of course, it's always a community celebration. So come out, food, bounce houses, face paint, all that good stuff. We'll have 500 book bags to give out to the community. And there are no zip code restrictions. So even if you know some other families somewhere else that may need assistance, come out, because I don't want to take anything home with me after I leave the event, because that's.
Address, where is it?
It's gonna be at Westgate Park at the
Nice.
football field. Once
Sweet.
the flyer comes, I will send it to everybody to share.
If
Nice.
you tune in on Facebook and YouTube, thanks for joining in. Thanks for attending the meeting. Thank you to all my fellow commissioners. You've done a great job.
Absolutely. And